Hello everyone and welcome to BCP Council's live question and answer broadcast with me, Drew Mellor. I'm the leader of BCP Council. Today we're having a focus on one of the most important responsibilities of any council, which is balancing and setting a budget. So, council budgets, we have a real impact on residents, businesses and visitors as they relate to everything from council tax, parking charges, to how we look after the most vulnerable in our society. So I think it's reasonable to say it's always a complex job, but because this year task is more challenging because as like families and businesses across the country, councils are also facing unprecedented budget pressures caused by the cost of living crisis. So we're trying to take a really proactive approach this year to prioritise our proposals to balance the budget for next year. You may have seen that we've been taking a monthly report through our cabinet, working through how we are balancing that budget for next year, and we've shown that we're able to do that. But good budget management in a time like this really does mean preparing for changes, even if we don't need to make them. So what we wanted to do was to talk to you, talk to a community in more depth and detail than we've done before about how we can deliver our services. So we recognise you may well have some questions about this. So let's have a session on it, and you can opportunity to ask directly today. We're also going to use this session today to gather feedback on what you, the community, are saying are most important services, and any ideas you have on how our communities can work more effectively together in the future. And I'm also very pleased to say we've for the first time put a really detailed 5-6 week community engagement exercise in, which is running now until just before Christmas. So we'll be sharing details of that later. We're super keen for everybody to feel like they can contribute to this process, as that's how we're going to prioritise our proposals for next year's budget setting, which takes place in February, in full council February. Today I'm joined by my colleague Adam Richards, the Council's Director of Finance. Really lucky to have Adam on board with us today. He plays a hugely important role in helping us put together a balanced budget each year, and is here to help me answer your questions as well. So we'll kick off shortly. Thanks as ever for taking part, and to those who've already sent some questions in. What we'll do is deal with some of the budget questions that have already been sent in first. Got a few other questions, more general questions, which have been sent in as well. So we'll bring those up. There will be another Q&A on the budget in the new year. So if you don't directly get your question answered today, do feel free to answer that again. So thank you very much again for watching. We're going to play a short video now introducing our budget position and our overview of the budget situation in general, and then we'll be right back for Adam and I to answer your questions. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that, and hello, Adam. Okay, the first question we will go to is from Ron Westcott. Okay, so just to explain that, actually, sometimes we get question answered in quite a lot of length, and so what will sometimes appear on screen is just sort of the main extract from it, effectively, because there's only a certain amount of space on the screen. So, but what Ron's asking is, what are the proposed savings in reduced staff costs, increased efficiencies and productivity, and when will they be finally be concluded, given that time has elapsed since the amalgamation? And Ron was also talking about a budget is not just about increasing income, but reducing costs and getting better value for the taxpayers. Ron, thanks ever so much for the question, and a really important point, particularly important in our context of having recently put Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole councils together. So we've made efficiencies since 2019 of, I think it's just under £50 million, 47.9 million pounds of efficiencies we've already made. And that's on top of efficiencies we made before the councils came together in sharing services. So, and just to give some context, our budget is in the region, Adam, is around 320 million a year.
We often quote our net budget for 22-23 as £331 million.
Great. Which is great. So if you, in context, a saving of, of effectively £50 million already from putting the council together is a really important part. We're in a position to be able to show how we can balance our budget for both this year and next year, despite the cost of living pressures. And it would be nearly impossible to have done that if we hadn't had those savings baked in. We've also got a transformation program now, which goes further effectively. So significant amount of back office investment. And we're, anticipating, the stretch target of that is in the region of another £50 million of savings as well over the next about 4 years. So we feel that because of those savings, we're in a better position. So Ron, completely agree with you. We're doing more than most because we've gone through that exercise of putting the three councils together, and we will continue to do that. Through the process we've been taking, Adam and I have been taking the council through since August. We've also been doing a lot of work with service directors about how we can actually structure some services differently and make some efficiencies and savings. So I think we've got a really strong record on that. Adam, anything you would like to say about the savings more generally?
Well, I suppose it's just to emphasise that the transformation savings are particularly scheduled in our budget for next year and the medium-term financial plan for next year and the following year. And through this process that we've been doing in order to set next year's budget at 23-24, we've been trying to establish whether or not we can bring any of particularly the headcount savings forward into 23-24 as part of that ongoing process. Yeah,
great. So detailed work streams, success, amount of money already delivered, and now further detailed work streams going forward. So Ron, thank you very much for your question. Next, we've got a question from Aaron, I believe, specifically talking about adult care. And for those who don't know, it's a really significant proportion of our money goes on adult social care and children, effectively, and Adam will have the precise percentages. But the question is, this is disproportionate to a single sector of the community. Should half of people's council tax go on care for others? How else could this be managed and paid for? Adam, what was the amount of adults and children percentages we had? It's a significant. It's in region about 60%, isn't it? Effectively.
If you looked at that £331 million net budget figure that I quoted earlier, that's the net budget for 22-23 figure that we often quote. 36% of that is actually spent on adult social care. 24% of that is spent in children's services. So as you say, almost 2/3 of our budget is dedicated on adults and children's services, i.e. supporting the most vulnerable within our society.
Yeah, thank you. So Aaron, just expanding on that a little bit, really, adults, that's 36% of our budget, adult social care budget, does cover all forms of personal and practical support for adults who need extra support to stay healthy, play a part in their community and lead as fulfilling lives as possible. So it's something that is obviously really, really important. We are living in an area with an increasing age demographic as well, so that is more pronounced for us than in some other areas, and that's one of the reasons why it does take up such a large proportion of our budget. We're trying to do quite a lot about that as well, because we're not going to shirk away from providing that care and having ambitions for people, adults to live well. But we're trying to make sure we can use that money more wisely. We've got a big program we're trying to look at in terms of called extra care housing. So if we can create the types of homes and houses for people to transition to, that means they can stay in their own home for longer rather than going to residential care, which is very expensive, and people prefer to stay in their own homes often. We're also looking at technology, so we've got quite a lot of investment and projects going around assistive technology. How can we provide a better quality of support to people in their own homes by use of technology. And one of the main things we've done, which is we try to take a more proactive approach, is we're trying to set actually some caps in our budget planning around adults and children in terms of what percentage that can go up every year. So we're trying to set a cap of effectively 2.99%. So saying that we've now got to look at how we can shape our budgets in that, because there's no point, going back to Ron's question, doing the efficiency savings we've been able to make, but then in 2 or 3 years' time we have to cut a lot of other services because we lose sight of the adults and children's budget. So getting that balance right is something we're working very hard to do, Aaron. Okay, Adam, anything on that? Or yeah, okay.
No, it's always a difficult issue because council tax provides funding for all of the council services, and many members of our community only engage with certain of those services, but it's around taking that overall collective and recognizing that the council tax is there to pay for all of those services, particularly those where there's that responsibility on the council to support the most vulnerable.
Yeah, and there are statutory services that we literally have to provide, and then there's non-statutory services, things we might want to invest in, but we feel it's important to our communities. Over a significant period now, effectively council budgets have been really squeezed, so the limit we're able to outside of what's statutory is more difficult. We're trying to be ambitious and positive and find different ways of delivering services and funding them as well, so that we can still be really ambitious about BCP as a place. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that question. We've got a question now from Sasha Morgan. I believe that's next. Yes, great. BCP states they want to create vibrant communities where everyone plays an active role. Why then do you make it so difficult through red tape and financial strangulation to achieve this? And Sasha, I believe, is from Arch, Association of Residents of Camford Heath, and in more detail was asking about why we're charging to use community shopping area when it makes it difficult to run a not-for-profit volunteer-led community activity. Sasha, thank you very much for your question. I'm really sorry to hear this has been your experience. I think sometimes councils are bureaucratic organisations to engage with. We're trying very hard to be as proactive as we can be, and if people are having any particular challenges, I'm very delighted and be welcome to hear them personally. And my email address, which I think the team will put up shortly, is drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. So if there are instances where we're struggling to be as interactive as the community would like, please let me know. It is our ambition to support communities, and we'd really be keen to hear from you about how we can better support you and your local group to help the local community. So and we talked earlier on about our budget survey, so please engage with that and talk about the issues you want us to engage with. We're doing a lot of work, and there's an element actually in terms of particularly the work we've been doing since August on with the cost of living crisis, and to set that into context. Inflation's over 10%. Our costs have been going up at or around 10%, both this year and for next year, which is a £55 million impact we weren't expecting in February. Because of that, we've been looking at how differently we can still provide services and support to communities, but are there different ways of doing it, and trying to become a much more enabling council, so where we're actually getting out of the way and supporting communities to do more community work is something we're really keen on. We've got a lot of buildings, and we've got some effective buildings which aren't as needed now because we've slimmed down as an organisation. So are there elements of that we can give buildings or support community groups to have buildings? Are there areas of our Futures Fund, which is a £50 million infrastructure fund we've created as our LGR dividend, where we can actually use some of that to support infrastructure and community groups? So we really work on this, Sasha, and it's something I'm personally very keen we get right. So thank you for your comments, but please do let me know if there's anything that is not working specifically. Okay, we've got a question from Zoe Keeping. I think that's next. Perhaps we'll bring that up. And Zoe is a secretary of FOCG and a Boscombe resident. Churchill Gardens, so it's Friends of Churchill Gardens. So why is BCP Council in the process of identifying budgets for the demolition of a community building in Churchill Gardens when the Friends of Churchill Gardens are in a position to play an active role and take over day to day? Really links into the last question as well, Zoe. So thank you very much for that. And we are keen to look at where we can explore how we can support organisations to take over buildings. But in this instance, the demolition of the older community building is required because of the planning conditioning in place for the construction of a new cafe building that opened this year, which requires its removal. So this has been consulted upon, and it identified the removal of that building to allow other improvements, including, I think it's things like a new play area, realignment of some paths, etc. So these works have been prioritised and will be brought forward as soon as as funding is available, and we hope to be able to work positively with residents and absolutely the Friends of Churchill Gardens through the projects. So we'll be in touch with you directly, Zoe, about that as well, so we're really clear on what can happen next. So thank you very much, Zoe. But we are keen to support residents and community groups with buildings and properties if we can. Okay, so we're going to move now on to, I believe it's a question from Aaron in terms of communication more generally. Yes, great. Whilst all of us pay for council services, I feel better communication and more explanation from those working inside it would benefit those paying. A day in the life of, as an email bulletin newsletter series. Yeah, Aaron, thanks for that. That's we're really keen to work out how we can do more of that, and we are doing quite a lot at the moment, but we can look at that as a specific example. I think what has changed in the last, since I've been a councillor across the BCP conurbation, is significant more digital communication, which and we've now got, for instance, all our meetings are online. This is obviously a new session and online, so we're trying to engage and do more. I would encourage people to sign up to our existing newsletters that we've got. I'm sure we can put a link up there. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Nextdoor, etc. So we have tried to do more. Their recent posts include a video of our street cleaning teams on through Christchurch. On TikTok, we put quite a lot more money and investment into street cleaning in Christchurch, and that was a great video to put up there as well. So we're trying to do more, things like our Proud to Care campaign, interviewing people working in care to promote career opportunities. But Aaron, really appreciate the suggestion, and our comms team will take that away and see if we can do more. But please, if people can sign up to our newsletter and follow us on Facebook, they're really good places to start. Thank you. Okay, perhaps we could share the question from somebody more now. Brilliant. Okay, is BCP on the right path to net zero? Do BCP face any barriers to doing this? What are they? So effectively, really important question. So, and again, we've done quite a lot with the budget in this area in the last 2 years. So we at the start of this council in 2019, pretty much all councillors, not quite unanimous, very nearly unanimous decision across the political spectrum to declare a climate and ecological emergency. So right from 2019 and the outset of this council, we've been clear that net zero is something we've needed to achieve for change of administration, and nothing's changed in terms of that ambition. What has changed is we've been able to increase the budget in terms of climate spend and our sustainability team. We've actually then made that budget permanent, and we've also, in our last budget, we put in a £20 million green futures fund where we effectively have the ability to bring money forward to invest in capital projects to support climate change. So it's not just about talking about it. It's about, well, actually, how are we going to support and fund and to do it? Quite often in there will be opportunities from our new head of sustainability and his team to bring forward some match funding ideas. Quite often, some of these things actually make money and are good, options for the council to do as well. Because if you're saving money on energy now more than ever, that has a benefit as well. So we're doing a lot. barriers to it are, we the government's been trying to lead, nationally and internationally on that. So we're trying to work really closely with the government on. But the cost of living crisis is a challenge and an opportunity around that as well. So things get more difficult in terms of our budget and ability to invest, but there's also more required. So that's effectively what we're trying to do there. Last question we've got so far is from Rob White, in terms of Poole High Street. Can I just ask that there be feedback on the progress of rejuvenation of the very sad Poole High Street, and if there are opportunities for more public engagement? So Rob, again, thank you for this. I think we've got a lead member for Poole Rejuvenation, Steve Barron, who's been working relentlessly across Poole for the last 2 years in terms of trying to make sure we're actually leading on that. We brought forward Future Places, which is our regeneration company, and we've in the early part of the new year, we've got a number of projects coming through from Future Places related to Poole specifically, and we look to see them through the councils and cabinet coming forward. So there's a lot coming there. I was really pleased. I don't know if people have been down to see it, but it's been so far well received, the Maritime Lights Festival. So we've got a really successful Lights Festival in Bournemouth, speaking to Paul Beard and people around the local economy there. Was let's get something going in Poole, and that's now launched for the first time this year, and it's been really successful. So I'd encourage anybody to go down there. The lower town, I think actually, the high street, it's a long high street, and it does cause challenges. The lower town part and the quay, I think it's is really looking great. Has cafe culture coming there, and we're trying to do more of it as well. So I think it's moving forward. I think there's Falkland Square. There's a lot of stuff going on there as well. So I think there are pockets where it's really moving forward. So let's just be positive, encourage it. We're going to back Steve Barron and what he's doing around Poole Rejuvenation and Future Places. So hopefully you'll have a lot more positive things to come going forward. So. Okay, well, there were the end of the initial questions. So perhaps what we'll do now is go and see other questions that we've had come in. While we're doing that, perhaps last thing I'd just like to I know we've done it a couple of times already, but share the engagement slide. Yeah, haveyoursay.bcpcouncil.gov.uk/budget. Really important for as many people to get engaged with that as possible. It's something we haven't done historically, but we thought it's really important to do as much engagement as possible. So please engage with that. Okay, fine. I've got a question. So I do apologise. I'm just struggling to pronounce your name, but at 11 o'clock, Harjeet Ambi Kaur asked a question about what is being done about the sorry state of town for a seaside location. We should be doing so much. I've touched on this with my answer to the Poole question, so I'm not going to go into just be relatively brief, but we're just bringing forward as a PSPO, a public space protection order to reinforce standards we expect in areas and what social behaviour looks like. We've put significant more money into our community support officers, so effectively that is we're trying to work more closely with the police around antisocial behaviour across the conurbation. My portfolio holder for community safety spoke at council recently and talked about how in terms of numbers, really improvements in antisocial behaviour. We're trying to do that as well as regenerating as well. So it's a bit about what we can do now, but it's also about planning for regeneration and investment going. So hopefully that gives you some answer to your question there. Right. Okay. So.
Drew, do you want me to come in and maybe answer the question from Linda Waggart, 1104, which is
fantastic, Adam. Thank you.
Do staff employed in BCP get an annual pay rise? And even if it's just to keep up with inflation? It's just to highlight that there is an annual review process that is undertaken, a negotiation between the council with the unions. It is conducted via a national employers association. For 22-23, a final agreement was reached where the pay of local authority employees would go up by £1,925, no matter what grade or what level within the organisation the individual employee is on. That at the lower end of the scale keeps up with inflation, but clearly as you go up the scale, it drifts away from that. So it averages about a 5.4% pay increase across the board.
Thank you very much for that, Adam, and thank you for the question. Right, we'll go next to Chris Bruce, 1108. Can you use your money on fixing people problems like dog mess and other things? Yeah, Chris, great, thank you, and it's good to get that feedback. So we put in, I believe it was, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, £3.8 million of extra money into Cleaner, Greener, Safer last year across a number of things, some of that was about street cleaning. We've agreed, we've taken that feedback, but we actually need to enhance the cleaning of our streets more. So we try to do more. We haven't spent that much money this year. It's one of the reasons why we're actually in a surplus this year rather than a negative position after cost of living, because it's quite difficult to recruit people. So some of the money we've tried to, some of that was community safety officers, some of that is extra street cleaning teams and investment. But it's been a really difficult environment to recruit people into, so we're trying to look at that differently. But yeah, absolutely, Chris. We have done, but if it's not getting there, we can and will do more. And your feedback around sort of priority area will be really, really helpful.
Drew, just to confirm, the figure was £3.1 million.
3.1 million. Okay, yeah, great. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for that clarity. And yeah, and we've spent a number of that, but we haven't been able to spend it all because of the recruitment issue. Okay, yeah, just underneath that, that comment from Chris at 1108 was one highlighting that, Chris, it's our money, and that was again from Hardjoke. And be core. Absolutely right, and that's actually why we've done as an administration. We've effectively got one of the lowest council tax policies in the country over the last 2 years. Effectively, we've tried to freeze and hold council tax where we can. I believe that's already £11 million of council tax money we haven't collected over the last 2 years. So we're trying to work out how we can invest more by being as efficient as we can, talk through the transformation program we've done, so we can invest more but still keep money in residents' pockets, which is where we think it belongs. So completely agree with that comment. Okay, let me just scan through some of the questions.
Drew, I can come in on the question from Catherine Avery at 11:14, where Catherine, great, I think, is more money being awarded to children's services, please. Clearly, I think the council's gone on record to saying it's justice, and as part of the budget as currently proposed for 23-24, the intention is to make an investment of just shy of £15 million, £14.6 million, further investment into children's services, covering that obviously will cover any cost pressures, any service pressures as well as part of that process, and that figure excludes any allocation of for pay increases that's dealt with separately from that figure.
Yeah, thank you for that, Adam. Great. Okay, let's go now to Philippa Clark, 11:18 a.m. Philippa essentially commutes by bike all year round, and the cycling improvements are now coming along nicely, which is great. Just to flag that, I think it's in the region of £100 million of government and local money we've been able to win to put into cycling and walking infrastructure. We're really keen on your travel, your choice. So if we can increase the ability for people to cycle and walk, then it takes some of the cars off the road for people who need to use them as well. And Philippa, I won't read your whole question out, but it's about we need secure bike parking in at least key places initially. And I think actually Philippa is getting a more important point with the prevalence of electric bikes and how expensive electric bikes are as well. So I agree with you. We put more money into CCTV and CCTV operation, but I will take that away and make sure we've got more a thought around how we're going to get secure bike parking. So Philippa, I appreciate that. It's exactly the type of feedback we wanted to get today. Okay, let's look through some more questions. Okay. Thank you very much to Nick Finnemore around for us continuing to do these sessions. So they're really appreciated. We just on that effectively. We're really keen. These more detailed sessions have seemed to be quite popular. So again, if people could let us know what type of comments they would like, and for us to go and do a deep dive on going forward. So good. Yeah. Okay, we had this session done as half an hour, and so we're getting to that point now. So I'm just going to do a quick scan of a question to see. Yeah, fine. I've got a question I'm not going to answer directly around an encampment, one-person encampment on Twin Sails Bridge. But Veronica, if you would like to email me directly, I don't want to talk about individual people, but Veronica, perhaps drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk, and I will respond to you directly on that. Okay, last question I think we've got time for. So Steve Hayes, do new BCP homes that are being built for the council stock have solar panels, batteries and air or ground source heating as part of a requirement for them being built? If not, why not? Steve, thank you. Yeah, so what we're doing, we are building more. We're buying more homes. So for instance, in Poole at the moment we've got a development of around about, I think it's about 160 homes, isn't it, Adam? In Hamworthy that we're building there. So and then we're trying to buy an extra 1,000 homes over the next 5 years, so we can actually be more active, have more housing stock, so we can local homes for local people. Steve's making a really valid point that we need to make sure they're as environmentally friendly as possible, and we are looking. We have a strong range of solar panel across our housing stock, and it's something we look to do. We've now got a team, Steve, effectively internal team to the council that we didn't really have before around sustainability. So we're working with us, and that's because that's more new money, new team of people we put in the last 2 years. So we are doing some of this, and we're going to look to do a lot more of it now as well. So hopefully we will continue to improve on that. Okay, we're running over time now. So let me just see if there's anything else anybody is Adam.
Drew, while you do that, just to highlight, we actually have just under 10,000 council homes. So that's a figure that often gets overlooked with regards to the activity of the council, with regards to managing those 10,000 council homes. But I think also Daniel Parkin has put on a polite reminder to me with regards to Durley Car Park, and I'll remind myself with the team as to where we're up to with responding to that question.
Okay, great, thank you. And I will just have one last question in from there's more of a statement from Lauren Shaw at 11:29. It's really important here, when we're talking about budget. So the part of the choices councils have is, do we raise council tax? We're limited to raise it at, usually it's 2.99%. The government have allowed us for the next 2 years to raise that to 4.99% if we want to. Lauren, what we've done over the last 2 years, we had an average council tax rise of 1.55% in our first year, and we had a core base rate council tax freeze last year. So very, very few other local authorities in the country are doing that. We're in a really, difficult situation this year, in having £25 million of in-year pressures and £30 million next year. And just to give you 1% on council tax raises, I think it's about £2.2 million, Adam, isn't it? Yeah, 2.2. Yeah, effectively. So we're trying desperately hard to not raise council tax and be small state, low tax administration. It's getting increasingly difficult with the cost of living, but you do have a council that has got either the lowest or the second lowest, as far as I'm aware, council tax policy of any upper tier local authority in the country over the last 2 years. So we are working hard to keep your council tax as low as possible. We look to see where it is compared to Christchurch is a good example. Was historically in Dorset Council, and I believe in our last budget report we were saying it was on average now £200 more expensive for a Dorset Council for a Band D property than it is now in Christchurch, because of Christchurch now BCP. So we are materially cheaper on council tax than other local authorities. but it's difficult, and we're trying very hard every day to work out how we can do more with less effectively. So Lauren, appreciate your concern, but I promise you we are working desperately hard for you on that. Okay, I do apologise, we've gone a few minutes over time. We've got another one of these sessions, I believe, in January, so we have details of that shortly. Our team will go through the questions that haven't been answered and come and answer them now. Is there anything, Adam, you'd like to say in terms of signing out? Okay.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, and Adam. Thank you. Adam does a fantastic job as our Director of Finance, and really appreciate your time on the call today, Adam. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody, and we look forward. Have a really happy Christmas. Really appreciate your thought. Please engage with that the budget priorities survey. It's on the tag at the bottom now. We really want as many people as possible to fed into that, and we come back in January with our budget proposal. So thank you very much, everybody. Happy Christmas.